I've got mine on. Okay. Here we go.
All right. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Dishing with Diane, a fireside chat. It's been a while. Haven't done too many of these in this year. Just had things going on. So we are back, and I'm back, and I've got my first guest for this season. We're in season 4. I think episode 33. I literally have kind of lost count of how many episodes, but definitely season 4. So excited to come back, bringing you some hopeful, useful information. But again, it's Dishing with Diane, Fireside Chat. I am with DNA Realty Team, Real Broker. My guest today is Warren Sumner, and he is a Triangle Realtor and an appraiser, also with Real. And so we're going to chat about, I think it's a hot topic. It's a hot topic. We're hot. It's hot. You know, we're trying to have the theme of the fire, but I'll tell you, we're in North Carolina, and it's a little balmy today, but, you know, we got to roll with it. But we're going to talk about appraisals because it's a hot topic with just the market, the environment, you know, how home prices have really driven up in the last couple of years. And so it just seems like people have questions about it, maybe don't understand it, and just want to pick the brain of an appraiser. So I brought Warren, and hopefully we can pick his brain, whatever there is to pick.
Talk about slim pickings. But
So anyway, Warren, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're
pleasure.
super busy. So
Of course.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, you did a pretty good job, but my name is Warren Sumner. I've been an appraiser, I hate it, it's pains to say it, but since 1998, which is 26 years. I got my trainee license in 1998 and
Wow.
have been doing brokerage since 2013. So dual real estate career, glutton for punishment. So just, you know, happy to be here and be out here fighting the good fight with everybody else. So
Awesome. Well, you know, I thought maybe we just start the basics of like, what is an appraisal? Like, just explain, describe what it is.
an appraisal determines the collateral value of a house for a mortgage. So, you know, what an appraiser does is produces a market value based upon generally comparable sales and listings in the neighborhood, as close as we can get to the property, and gives that number, reports that back to the bank or the mortgage lender, so they can determine if the house, and combined with the borrower's credit and cash down payment and everything else, will qualify for a mortgage loan.
Okay. So is it only when someone's getting a mortgage that an appraisal is typically done? Are there other times an appraisal might be considered?
Well, you know, the appraisals are done for various reasons. I mean, I just completed one that is a date of death valuation for an estate.
A date of
Death.
a date of death.
So when a homeowner passes away, we determine what the value of their property was on the day that they died. You know, you can use appraisals in divorce situations, in equitable distribution for determine the value for an exchange for 1031.
Oh.
So there's numerous reasons why an appraisal would be done.
Okay. And refis and things, but that's still with a lender, yeah.
Right. Tax challenges. I mean, you know, there's
Okay.
a ton of reasons.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, awesome. All right, so that's what appraisals are for and about, and they do. So, can you talk a little bit about the process? How does it work? What happens?
Generally, the client, whoever that may be, the mortgage lender or homeowner, engages the appraiser to do the assignment. The appraiser goes out, measures the house, takes pictures. We pull comparables, which are, like I said, sales generally in the neighborhood that are of similar square footage, similar age, similar amenities and finishes, and we compare those properties to the subject property.
They're sold. These are sold properties, closed.
Sold, yes, but we use listings and pending sales as support for those.
Okay.
So you kind of put that all in the mix, adjust everything out, and then hopefully turn back a defendable market value for that property.
Okay. Cool beans. So usually, right, it's the lender who's sending you out. That's really your client, right? For the most part, it's the lender.
For the most part, most of my work is as an appraiser is lender work.
Mm-hmm. So they're going out to get the valuation of the property, and then based on that, they'll determine what they're going to loan on, right? Because it's usually
Correct.
one or the other, right? It's price or appraisal, whichever is lower. Usually.
Most of the times, the lender will only lend to the level of the appraised value. Yes.
Yeah, right. Whichever one is lower. So cool. So tell us about the things that, in your experience, what can, I don't know, I want to say enhance and or detract the valuation of a property? What have you found?
Well, for the most part, value is generally given to things you can stand on and use. There's not a lot of esoteric things that add a whole lot of value to a property.
What's an example when you say esoteric? That's kind of a big word.
Well,
for me.
Decorating, cosmetic items, things like that.
Okay.
The
decker.
The decker, yeah. Right. The materials, decks, screen porch, outdoor areas like we're sitting in right now. Those kind of things can are defensible through the market and add value. Okay. Swimming pools, it's kind of funny. I mean, swimming pools before COVID were not worth a whole lot, if anything. And then when COVID hit, everybody wanted one, and they became a huge selling item. So those kind of things shift with the market. Huh. One other controversial thing is solar panels. Solar panels up, till now have not produced a lot of market value. Will that be the case in the future as Duke Energy raises prices and things like that? Those amenities may become more valuable as we get down the road.
So what shifts the market value? Like of a pool, panels, why does that make it less valuable one time and more so?
Well, when we got into COVID and everybody was cooped up in their homes, outdoor spaces of any kind became more important because people couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't do anything. And the market value of pools skyrocketed. It's coming back down now, but they're more valuable now than they were 10 years ago.
So it's not just a straight, I don't know, I guess I just think so it's not just a straight number thing. Like if I do a yard enhancement, I put a pool in and it cost me $100,000, that value is not just automatically translated to the cost or value of a home, is what you're saying.
The value that a amenity provides a house is known as contributory value.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily cost to construct.
Huh.
So those things, you may spend $100,000 remodeling a kitchen, and that's great, but that doesn't mean that an average typical buyer, who is the appraiser's target, is going to produce that value back to the property.
Okay. So that's good, because I think that's something a lot of people don't fully understand, and clients, when I'm out, getting properties ready for listings and things, and just trying to talk about pricing and then, being somewhat cognizant of, like you said, comps, people do sometimes think, well, I did this and this and this, and I put in, the granite countertops, and I did all this work, and I think I should be getting my return on that at X%, and it doesn't exactly play out that way.
Unfortunately, it doesn't matter so much what the homeowner thinks, it's what the buyer thinks. And houses are just like any other commodity. It's not what we think, it's what we can prove. And it's, a Mickey Mantle baseball card, rookie card, for instance. Topps book says it's worth $10,000, but it's only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. So houses are no different from that.
Yeah. And I think, I know you're a real estate agent and an appraiser, and, when COVID was happening and prices were escalating, that was a whole supply-demand thing, basic economics. Right. And when those prices were going up, I know, sometimes people were like, oh, sellers are being so greedy or this and that. It's all about what a buyer's willing to do, is what you're saying, in that regard, as well as what you're willing to pay for something. It's like that value seen in the eye of the buyer.
Correct. And during that time, especially at the onset of COVID, the appraisal wasn't as important as it is in other times, because you had these buyers flush with cash coming in from other parts of the country mostly, and they were outbidding everybody and paying well over list price, and those things an appraiser really can't quantify, because we have to, we deal with data for the most part.
People were even waiving appraisals. They were sort of not really caring.
And they're caring.
If it appraised or not.
Some of them are caring right now. But
yes. Yeah. So what are you seeing now in the market? What are some of the, shifts? I know you said pools, but what other shifts are you seeing in the appraisal space, and what are some trends you're maybe?
Well, I don't think right now we've got a vastly appreciating market like we had a couple years ago. We're still stable. I mean, we're still strong, and we're seeing a little bit of appreciation.
And that's here in North Carolina, right? We're
Correct.
speaking our local market here. What's happening in other markets, of course, we can't really speak to that, but you could probably see if you're watching from other places, you would know what's the trends are going on. But we're talking about North Carolina, and particularly we're talking about the Triangle area here.
But even in that, certain segments of the triangle are performing at a different rate than others. So, I've been noticing Holly Springs have been very, very popular lately, whereas Franklinton, to my surprise, has not been performing as well. But we have a bunch of new construction coming in, and so all those markets shift and change with properties and sales, and all markets are ultra local. So the hyper local market is super important.
Okay. So you got to know the local stuff and what's happening with the properties and the trends and the changes. And, here, like you said, we're pretty steady just because of where we are, I think. The Triangle area is just such a hot place still.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere here. I mean, we've got too much tech sector coming in. We still have investment. It's still one of the more popular places in the country to live, and people aren't leaving. They're leaving other places to come here. So I don't have any major concerns of an imminent collapse in the Triangle anytime soon. So.
Well, that's good. That's good
Right.
to hear. Did you hear that? No imminent collapse. No real concern on that front. Holding steady. Still seeing appreciation, just not at that 20% rate. What are we? Maybe 3 to 5%.
Yeah,
sort of happening.
That's a good solid average number for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So prices are holding, values are holding, properties are holding. So, can you talk about? Because I think this is another area people get a little, unclear around. And if you can speak to it, assessed value versus appraised value versus market value, like all these different things. What do they mean? What's the difference? How's somebody supposed to navigate that?
Well, assessed value is kind of its own animal because the assessor has an agenda, and that's to collect taxes. So they assess their values and accordingly. Wake County, for instance, I think does an excellent job with what they have to work with. They're pretty close. They're one of the better ones. Some of these other assessments you'll see high or low, and there's not a lot of rhyme or reason. And I think those folks do the best job with the information they have, but they're not on the ground in houses like an appraiser or a realtor is. So, not necessarily the best measurements or the.
And sometimes they don't even come in at all, right? They just do an aerial. Don't they just kind
Correct.
of sometimes do I don't know. I'll call it an aerial. I don't know what else to call it.
And colloquial term is a drive-by.
Okay.
They'll go out and do an exterior only valuation.
Okay.
And sometimes they're right on the money, and sometimes they make people mad, and then that person calls an appraiser to come challenge the appraisal, and that sometimes works out for them, and sometimes doesn't. So.
I notice people only get mad when they want to stay in their home and they don't want to pay the taxes, but they're super happy when they want to sell their home.
Right.
And so it just depends where you are in the cycle of your home ownership and your own agenda, right? What do you want? Of course, you want better appraisal, pricing, and assessing when you're planning to sell, and vice versa. But
well, I can, getting back to the Mickey Mantle baseball card, argument. I can appraise a house for $11 bajillion, but that doesn't matter a lot unless the buyer's willing to pay it. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, the buyers in any market are the ones that determine what the ultimate value is.
So, aside from all the things that one could do to upgrade, enhance, add value, like hardscapes and updating their kitchens and changing out their front door. I don't know. I hear a lot about front doors are supposed to add a whole. Is that true? If you change your front door?
Well, being an appraiser is a lot like being a prosecuting attorney. It's not what we think; it's what we can prove. So there's not a lot of data for a front door usually.
Okay. I see just different information about that. Is one of the things you can do is.
Well, if you notice on HGTV, it's always a real estate expert that comes in to value the house. They never identify them as appraisers. So when they say that the house is worth more because the $50,000 because of drapes they put up, there's not usually appraiser that will stand behind that. So
Okay. All right. So anyhow, what was that? I don't even know what I was saying. I was asking about. Oh, I know where I was going. So aside from doing things that could add some of value because of what buyers are looking for in a home these days, right? How much, regardless of doing those things, how much does location still really matter? Like,
location's always the first rule in real estate. So that's the first thing that an appraiser is going to look at is, because if you're looking at a house and you're looking at comparables, I mean, all those locational factors come into play first. School districts, lifestyle, any kind of, parks, recreations, all those things. People choose where they want to live based on that first. Then the house comes into valuation next. So locations are still and always will be first and foremost.
so even if you didn't do all the fancy things to your house, but you're in the right location.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Okay. And then if not, you might have to do some other things to add that attraction or appeal and things to your home so people want to consider it.
Right. Well, an old dated house in Cary or Chapel Hill is going to sell a little higher than
A brand new one in
right.
Brooklyn.
Well, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. So it's still location matters, though we know and are seeing a spread of the populace, right? Just because we're a little more saturated now, and so people are moving farther out in a way. What about how has COVID and the idea of working from anywhere and working from home, how has that shifted a little bit, that paradigm of location, or has it?
Well, I think that some of your outskirt areas that used to be outskirt areas, I should say, Wake Forest.
Where we are.
When I first moved here and I did an appraisal in Wake Forest, I thought I was driving to the end of the earth. Now it's a suburb of Raleigh, and kind of its own thing as a suburb of Raleigh. Pittsboro, huge explosion. With the, RTP, people, you can't buy houses and you can't buy land around there anymore. So people are moving to Pittsboro and Sanford and some of these outlying areas because they can work remotely, and maybe they're going in the office twice a week or 3 times a week rather than every day. So it gives.
So it's changing the appeal of these places, which is changing the valuation of them. Is that a fair statement?
Sure. If you look at the development like Chatham Park in Pittsboro, huge. I mean, just lots of activity.
They're building that Disney building something.
Oh yes, we're gonna have.
Disney's coming here.
Yes, we're gonna have mouse ears, and they're gonna think because of that it's worth $50,000 more.
Yeah.
So.
What's the neighborhood called? There's a Disney community coming in Pittsboro. I forgot the name of it. Kind of like Celebration in Florida, if you're familiar with that. We are getting a Celebration-like community in North Carolina, in Pittsboro, which is in Orange County? No, Chatham County. And so, Mickey's coming to North Carolina.
Mickey's invading us,
if
yes.
If you want to live in a Disney-esque environment, we got one for you here.
We'll have to introduce Mickey to barbecue, see how he likes that.
Yeah, see how he likes Southern barbecue. So what else do you want to share with folks that we haven't really talked about that you think is important when it comes to how to approach it when they get there? It's always, on the selling side, right? When I'm listing homes or buying, right? When people are trying to buy and they put in an offer and they get accepted and all that, and then we get the appraisal back, unfortunately, it shouldn't be this adversarial relationship between agents and appraisers, but sometimes it does become that. But everybody's just trying to do their job, right? They're doing the right thing. But,
sure.
What can you say about that? I mean, people get upset, or if it doesn't come out where they thought, or the listing side, we try to price them the best we can.
Well, I'll say that being a real estate appraiser prepared me more for being a husband than anything else. Because no matter how much logic and reason I use, I was still always wrong. So it worked out. Appraisers are people too. I mean, we do the best job we can with the information we've got to work with. And not everybody agrees with it. Just know that there is a process in any appraisal where you can submit what's called a reconsideration of value request. You can submit comps. You can submit those things. If you've got the data that you feel like the appraiser hasn't taken into consideration, there is a rational and reasoned process to going and providing those to the appraiser, and they can decide if it's worth making that adjustment or not. You know, it's never fun when people don't like you and they start throwing stuff at you, but it's part of the job. An appraiser's job is to be an objective set of eyes for the lender, for the most part, and determine if that, the loan they're making is a good one or not. So we have a job to do. Realtors have a job to do. We're not against realtors, but we aren't necessarily for them either, and that's by design.
Yeah. I mean, we have to have those walls of separation, like you said, so that there's a fairness in the process, right? I mean, we're doing our part to get a home to the market. We're pricing it. I often say this because I also do instruct, for the commission, but that distinction between what a real estate agent does, we give probable pricing. We help you understand where your home may fare in the market from a pricing perspective. We do not tell you what your home is worth, and so that comes from the appraiser. You're doing valuation. You've got far more different experiences, skills, and credentialing to actually do a valuation and a worth of a property. We're doing pricing to what the market is commanding at the time and where your house may fare based on its condition and location and other things that we've done to get the home on the market.
That value is coming from the appraiser, but the appraiser is getting that value from the market. So not only do you have comparable sales and homes, you have comparable buyers that are buying in the same neighborhoods, the same locations, all that stuff that we talked about. And, they're determining what the value is. The appraiser is more of a reporter. UNC loses a basketball game. We don't particularly like it sometimes, some of us. But
it depends.
We can't get mad at the reporter for telling us that.
Who's telling you the score.
Right.
Right. That's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah. And oftentimes, I think, and most times, they tend to kind of work out fairly within a ballpark of reason about, the pricing of the home and the price that's offered and contracted and the appraisals. There's not oftentimes a huge...
Well, I think that, for the most part, realtors do a good job. And, hopefully we've educated our clients, and then the buyer's agents are negotiating correctly for their clients. And
doing the comps and finding out the actual what's been a reasonable pricing and what have people done in the past. Yeah.
And I can't speak for what every appraiser does, but I know whenever I'm doing a purchase appraisal, as a matter of, protocol, I reach out to the listing agent and say, send me what you use to price the house, send me what you have on the front side.
That's good.
So that way I'm taking all that into account before I develop my report.
That's good. I wish more appraisers would do that.
No, it's I think it's a better way of doing things. I'm not saying that I'm going to agree 100% with the listing agent, but I might. And
you're just collecting all the information to then factor it in if necessary.
And a listing agent and a seller is going to know more about that home than an appraiser ever will, because appraisers are not home inspectors. We don't go inside the nooks and crannies and mechanical systems and plumbing and all that. So we take, like I said, we take the information we have to work with and the data that we have and do the best job we can with it.
I see like an appraisal as like the checks and balances, right? Like somebody, it's like branches of government, like somebody, you need to have those different entities to just keep things in check. Otherwise, it could get out of control pretty quickly if buyers are just running the show from what they want to do and need to do. So it does keep the markets in balance. It keeps things on even keel. But yeah, like when I'm doing my listings, I will reach out as well. It's just to kind of, because we can also call you. It's not like we can't. We just need to share data and not try to, influence anything. Just sort of, hey, here's what I've done.
Right.
And sometimes I'll leave information at the house or do things, just to have some prep to say, here's some information that may be something for your consideration. Right?
And I've gotten, as an appraiser, as any appraiser working in the market, I've gotten reconsideration of value requests. And there have been times that I have raised my estimated value based on information I didn't have, or the thing about realtors is that they go in some of these houses that I'm using as comps because they show them to other buyers. And not everything that is relevant about a house is put in the MLS sheet. So that perspective is super valuable to any appraisers trying to do a good job.
Good, that's great. So so we just wanted to, take a little time to talk about this topic of appraisals because it does come up. People are curious, have questions, and certainly get frustrated when the numbers aren't falling in the direction where people would like them to, depending on what side of the transaction you may be on, and also where you are, like I said, if you're staying in your home or selling it and all. But anyway, and just help understand how market value, appraised value, assessed value, sort of how those things kind of line up. Here in North Carolina, the assessed value is at 100% market value. So whatever they assess the home for, we're taxed at that value at 100%. Some
Right.
states do it differently, so I just need to, make that known. And then your appraised value, like you're saying, is based on actual looking and doing and getting under the hood and being around the property and comparing to what's already been happening in the market. And then your list price is based on all our data and what we've collected, and hopefully those things are falling somewhat in alignment as the best they can. Does that make sense?
I couldn't have said it better. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you could. Maybe you could.
No.
So anyway, I think I've answered questions. The questions were about, about improvements and things that people were asking what's good. We talked about what you can and can't do, or not what you can't do. You can do whatever you want. It's your house. But how that's going to play out in the appraisal space.
Bathrooms and kitchens, I didn't mention that earlier. Bathrooms and kitchens are
always, okay. Bathrooms and kitchens, always the place to go.
I always, in the realtor hat that I wear, I always say that, and I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, but women buy houses. Men just pay for them. So the rooms that are important
Mama ain't happy? No.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So that's what determines your value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kitchens and bathrooms. And so a question comes up about, can we request a certain appraiser? Are we allowed to do that?
No.
No.
No. Not that
No, we can't.
It's usually a blind process where it's a rotating panel of appraisers. Most companies use, as much as I don't like this sometimes, what's known as appraisal management companies, their job is to hire the appraiser to do the job, and it's a blind process that either agent can't get involved in. So
yeah, and that's to protect all the things we're talking about. I mean, we don't want to rehash the crash of 2006. Was that 8? When did it crash?
It was.
It's been so long now.
Yeah, it started in 06.
Yeah, it started in 06. Kind of finished. Oh wait, and I think most of us know sort of how that happened and some of the collusion, and so since then, lots of different protections and walls and firewalls, whatever you want to call them, have been put in place to create a far more objective process.
Started with the Graham-Leach-Briley Act. I think that was 2001. And the Dodd-Frank.
Yeah, Dodd-Frank was a big one.
Right. So those two kind of put that insulating layer in between the general public and appraisers.
Mm-hmm. And lenders. So
lenders, right.
Well, great. Well, Warren, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Loved spending time with you and talking about this. This is, sometimes it's not a sexy topic if you want to call it that, but it's a
Hey!
But it's a topic of interest, and certainly on everybody's minds. People always want to know what their home's worth. How did you figure that out? How does that compare to all the other pieces, like we said, list price, assessments, taxes, and all that good stuff? So hopefully we've answered some of your questions, and appreciate you all tuning in. And any parting words?
Appraisers are sexy.
Appraisers are sexy. There you go. Thanks so much.
All right, have a great one.